Welcome, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining. We'll be starting in about 3 minutes. So opportunity to make any final adjustments. And for those you already here, I'd love to get started by asking you to look outside your window, wherever in the world that you are, and let us know what you see. What's the weather doing? For me right now, I've got some clouds, can't see much sun, but can definitely see lots of beautiful blossom.
Grey and raining in South Wales, which is fairly normal.
I was going to say, fantastic. Shazia, you've got some blue sky. Fantastic. I'm glad that some of you got some blue skies. Oh, Audrey's got some black skies. So those of you got some sun, please feel free to share the love. We'll be starting in about 2 minutes. Very jealous of all of you that got blue skies and sunshine. Enjoy. Just another minute before we get started. Rachel, just seen your message in the chat. Cloudy, surrounded by trees and birds in the garden and beautiful spring flowers. We were literally just talking in the office a few minutes ago about canal boat holidays. And I remember as a kid doing Norfolk Broads, beautiful part of the world. So amazing. Okay, we're almost there. It's so wonderful to have so many of you with us already. Give me a second and we'll get started. Can you see the slides yet? Can anyone see the slides? Seem to have a technical issue there.
I think you might be sharing the wrong screen.
Okay, good. Slides. No worries, thank you. Give me a second while I just adjust that.
Hi, everybody. We're having a few technical difficulties at the moment. If you can bear with us for 2 minutes, we'll be ready.
Okay, I am so sorry, everybody. Not sure what happened there. It boot me out of Teams, but here we are. Hopefully it's all working now. Can you all hear me loud and clear?
Yep.
Perfect.
I can hear you. Yeah. Mhm.
That's great.
Yes.
Can you all now see the slide?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yes.
Wonderful. I appreciate your patience. Perfect test for what we're about to discuss. How many of you know what positive changes that you would like to make in your life? Couple of you? Okay. How many of you notice that when you try to make changes, old or bad habits can return, particularly when you're under stress and pressure? How many would agree with that? You can have the best ideas, best intentions, but when the pressure is on and you get stressed, the old habits might start to return. How many of you feel confident to turn good intentions into positive habits? Okay, not quite so many hands. That's okay. How many of you don't know what positive change you want to make, haven't noticed old or bad habits creeping in when you're stressed, and also potentially don't feel confident about turning good intentions into positive habits? And either way, it's okay. This is what we are here to discuss. As many of you already know, we are in the middle of Stress Awareness Month. We're actually slap bang in the middle of it. It's halfway through our annual campaign. Been really inspired by how many people have got involved, how many people are talking about and sharing all the wonderful work that we're doing to raise awareness during Stress Awareness Month. The theme this year, if you're not aware, is hashtag Be the Change, how we turn awareness into action. And that's really what today's discussion is about, an opportunity to focus on how we turn ideas, intentions, awareness into action, not just for the short term, but how we can essentially yield long-term positive behavioral change, where we can start showing up as the change we want to see in the world, very much inspired by Mahatma Gandhi's quote. And that's really what today's discussion is about, is going deeper into the conversation we started a couple of weeks ago. How many of you were here for last month's session? Okay, and if you weren't, that's absolutely fine. We've also got a recording of it. If you're interested in watching that one, we can share that with you as well. Really grateful that 180 odd of you have invested your time and energy to be here as part of today's discussion. We do record these sessions because generally find 10, 20 times as many people watch it as a recording as opposed to watching it live. So just making you aware that you will have access to this recording after the session, and you will also be able to share that with friends, colleagues and family members should you wish to. Who are we? For those of you who don't know, my name is Neil Shah. I run an organisation called the Stress Management Society, which is now an international non-profit organisation I set up in 2003 off the back of a first-hand experience with my mental health. I had a breakdown, which eventually led to me getting to the point where I didn't want to be here anymore. And I actually did take action against that. Thankfully, I failed. But it was through the recovery of that experience that I recognized there were lots of other people that were experiencing similar challenges, and there just wasn't enough out there to support people. So I decided to do something about it. I didn't expect to be doing that for the rest of my life. I thought that, you know, with the way the world was going, things would only get easier and better. But sadly, I was terribly wrong, because from a mental health perspective, things have got more challenging, more demanding, and more people are suffering today than ever before. And as part of that, we ended up becoming stewards of the Stress Awareness Month campaign. It was started by another organisation that no longer exists, so we took over the mantle from them in 2003. So for the last 23 years, we have been stewards of the Stress Awareness Month campaign, and we're really grateful that since its inception, we've reached more than 100 million people, which is incredible given that we're a small organisation based in West London, that we've reached that many people. And we also have a research and consultancy arm that works with a variety of different organisations around the world, and that's called International Wellbeing Insights. So really what we're here to do is share some of the things that we've learned along the way, hopefully to inspire and empower you to be able to take action that brings benefit to you and all the people you're in touch with. As I mentioned, we are a non-profit charitable organisation. We can only continue doing this work because of the generosity of all the people that support us. Any small amount really is gratefully received. It just allows us to create more resources, run more of these kind of sessions, and reach more people. So if you're able to help, there is a QR code on the screen where you can make a donation. We're really grateful to all that have donated to our cause for Stress Awareness Month. So just a little bit about this session. As much as, yes, there is almost 200 of us here today, this is not a lecture. It's not a webinar. It's not myself here talking to you for the next 52 minutes. There will be opportunities to get involved in the discussion. We do want to hear from you. Let's try and have some human-to-human conversations. So please do put your cameras on so we can actually talk to each other as real human beings rather than initials on the screen. It's an interactive session. There aren't a lot of slides. It's more about kind of creating the space and opportunity for us to talk to each other. So I'll be asking questions. They're actual questions, not rhetorical ones. Please feel free to get involved. Either jump on the microphone or drop your message into the chat. I've got my wonderful colleague Tom here today. Tom, give us a wave. Tom is my co-pilot, so he'll be picking up any comments in the chat, and he'll also be sharing with us some of the research he did to help to prepare for this session as well. Remember, this is your session. Tom and myself are here to serve and support you to the best of our ability, but please get involved and get the most value from the time that you invested here today. So ask your questions, share your experiences, disagree, seek clarification, tell me to slow down. Whatever you need at any point in the next 51 minutes or so, we are here to help. Just a couple of ground rules as well to ensure we have a safe space to have this discussion. Firstly, as mentioned, we've got a tiny amount of time. Let's make the most of it by being as present as we can. This, as I said, is designed for you to be involved and engaged. So be fully present. If you can, limit any other distractions, technology off or silent if you can. The nature of the conversation we're about to have, I'm just putting in the trigger warning because we obviously are talking about mental health, and that may lead to us talking about when people are really struggling with their mental health as well. So just making you aware of that. As I mentioned already, what you put in will determine what you take out from this session. Be open, honest, and respectful. If someone shares something you don't like or agree with, that's okay. They're entitled to their opinion as you are entitled to yours. I encourage you to have an open mind and an open heart, new ideas, new perspectives, new ways of looking at things. You never know, you might find something that could change your perspective and change your approach to how you deal with change and manage stress. If you are making statements, speak on behalf of yourself. So using I statements, I think, I believe that, in my opinion, rather than speaking on behalf of others. We do ask that it's a safe space in the sense that if someone shares something of a personal or sensitive nature, please don't post that on social media without their express permission. The only caveats to that, anything that Tom and I offer, you have our full permission to share that with anyone that's willing to listen. But also the other caveat is if you mention anything that impacts your safety or the safety of others for duty of care reasons, that's the only other time that we'd break the confidentiality. Those rules do apply to those of you watching this as a recording, as well as those of you who are here present in person. If you do think of any more that you'd like to add, then feel free to drop them into the chat. So 2026, we live in a world where we have access to information at our fingertips. Literally, you can pick up your phone and not just go on TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, or search on Google. Now we've got AI, and ultimately anything you want is available, within seconds. All the information, all the answers you need are readily available. And in a world of information overload, do we have all the information we need to manage stress? Because if you've got a question, it's very easy to get an answer. how is it that many of us are still struggling to manage stress, are still struggling with our mental health? So what are your thoughts around this? Go for it, Simon. Simon Fletcher, I see you've got your hand up. What's your thoughts around this question?
Sorry, apologies, my everything was off. Right,
No,
so
no worries.
yeah, so basically what I'm thinking is probably what causes a lot of stress and anxiety and having everything at your fingertips is literally probably the amount of fake news that you're reading as well. So you're not, I think because everything's at your fingertips, you can't actually identify what's true and what isn't, and that can actually increase your anxiety. I think that's my view. I hope I've stayed on the right path with you. I hope I haven't.
No, there is no right or
Yeah.
wrong path. This is an opportunity for an open discussion, but you're right. Sometimes when there's too much information, you go into apathy, kind of like a rabbit in the headlights. There's too much information. I don't know what to believe, what to follow. And you end up, rather than just picking one thing, you end up doing nothing. Would you agree with that, Simon? If there's too many options? Yeah.
Overwhelming,
absolutely.
isn't it? Overwhelming, like someone's put on the group chat. Yeah. The information can be. It's a little bit like as well if you suffer from health anxiety as well. You can go on to like do a search under a symptom, and for example, you can come up with some very overwhelming answers, and you don't know what to believe, and a lot of it can be very much the worst case scenario, and you can really overly worry yourself and cause yourself a lot of anxiety as well by doing that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They call it decision fatigue. When there's too many options, you struggle to make a choice, if that makes sense. You know, if you go to like a really fancy restaurant, they've normally only got like 4 or 5 options on the menu. And then you go to some of those chain restaurants and they've got like dozens, hundreds of options. And actually, the more options there are, the harder it is to make a decision and to actually do something. And I think that's what many of us are experiencing right now. It's kind of like when there was 5 channels or 4 channels or 3 channels, depending on how old you are, on the television. Your choices were pretty limited. So it's a lot easier to make a decision on what you're going to watch, right? Now that we've got thousands and thousands of channels and on demand, actually, you could spend hours trying to find something to watch. And I think this is one of the things that I find in the world today, and some of the things that I often hear from people. It's just like, I don't know what's true. I've got too many choices. I've got too many options. I don't know what to do. I like that, Alistair. The tyranny of choice. I've not heard that before, but I will definitely borrow that. Who do we have? I can see a hand up, but it's only showing me your surname. But so I've got you up as Lewis Bowen. I can't see your first name.
It's Sharon. I know that double barrel surname causes issues everywhere. Yeah, it's Sharon.
Thank you, Sharon.
I think there's so much fighting, and any time you go on to look for an answer, it's all the fighting in the news, everything that's happening in America and the oil prices, everything. It's just creates its own anxiety, I feel.
Absolutely. And on top of that, Sharon, the one thing I've noticed, which I find really bizarre, is the fighting when like someone might put on a comment like, let's say hypothetically, drinking water's good for you. And you're like, loads of people say, yeah, water's good for you, water's good for you. And someone would be like, no, that's a lie, that's misinformation. And then people are fighting about something that's not even worth fighting about, if that makes sense. Because most of us
to be feeding down into society, doesn't it?
Yeah, because we're so used to being in this state of kind of, you know, conflict that sometimes we're creating conflict when there is no need for any, if that makes sense. And I think that's something I'm seeing more, particularly the way that social media's primed many of us. So yeah, absolutely. James, go for
it. Sorry, excuse me. I think a couple of things I think. The news, I constantly watch the news and I keep telling myself not to because it's just so depressing what's going on around the world. And I also think as an older person that the world's become too complicated, and I think the complication just makes people feel more stressed, you know, with the expectations. And you know, so yeah, just a couple of thoughts I just thought I'd throw out there.
Absolutely. Thank you, James. I agree. So let's kind of, you know, put this to the test, and I'm going to come to Tom in a second, and let's get a sense of what we've got going on in the chat. But how many of you feel that you have at times in your life been given or come across good advice on how to manage stress? How many would agree with that statement? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Got a few hands going up. Great. So how many of you have heard that sleeping, 6 to 8 hours a night is good for you? How many of you have heard that? Okay, I'd be surprised if most, if not many of you have heard that before. How many of you have ever heard the 5 a day? This is more UK specific. For those of you outside the UK, you may not have heard that before, but we used to run billboard campaigns. The Public Health England used to run campaigns around eat your 5 a day. So how many of you have heard that before, right? So 5 a day, quite a few hands going up. Okay. How many of you have heard drinking 2 litres of water a day is good for you? Okay, again, I'd be surprised if most of you hadn't come across that in some form or fashion. How many of you have ever heard that 10,000 steps a day is good for you? Okay, again, several hands going up. Now, let's just park for a second the fact that those bits of information aren't strictly speaking true, that it's not necessarily 6 to 8 hours for everybody. We all have a different requirement for sleep. If you're interested in looking at that further, read a book called Why We Sleep by Matt Walker. The 5 a day, it's guidance, but there's no scientific basis to that. Because you could eat 5 bananas a day and I've ticked my 5 a day. Drinking 2 litres of water a day, again, it's not quite that simple. It depends on a number of different factors: age, sex, levels of physical activity, ambient temperature, whether you're male, female, and there is a unique water consumption formula for each individual. So a blanket 2 litres of water a day doesn't quite work. 10,000 steps a day, zero science behind that. That came from a marketing company in Japan that was trying to sell pedometers. It's true. You can look that up. So it's a nice number, and walking 10,000 steps is going to be beneficial, but the specific number that attached to all of these bits of information is guidance, not absolute. But let's just park that for a second. If you have heard that information, let's say it was true. Let's say it was true to sleep 6 to 8 hours a night, to eat 5 bits of fruits and vegetables, to drink 2 litres of water a day, to walk 10,000 steps. If that information was true, does knowing that information bring any value or benefit to your life? So repeat the question. Does knowing that information bring any value to your life?
Well, you'd hope
No.
it would bring value. Will.
So some of you said no. What's the reason you said no? Because actually, I'm just going to track back. I saw a comment in there. Where was that? Yeah, Rachel. The evidence around, all of these for physical, mental, and emotional benefit. I agree. Staying hydrated, sleeping well, eating well, moving your body, absolutely, totally in agreement with you, is good for you. What I'm suggesting here, the numbers that we have here on the screen are not necessarily true for everyone. Some of us are going to need more water than 2 litres a day. Some of us will need more or less physical activity. Sleep, again, is very much based on the individual. What I'm suggesting here is, yes, doing these things is good for you. The exact number varies from person to person. But the point here was, does knowing that information bring any value to your life? No. Why? Because knowledge doesn't bring you power. If you look up the word power in the dictionary, it quite literally means the ability or capacity to do or act when applied to a human being. So if we think of a powerful human being, it's someone that has a great ability or capacity to do or act. Knowledge gives you power if you apply it or take action against it. Does that make sense? So if you know this information, do nothing with it, it brings you zero value to your life. If you know this information, take action against it, and you ensure that you're taking action to get a good night's sleep, to nourish your body well with the right foods, that you are staying hydrated, that you're moving your body appropriately and adequately, then it brings you benefit. Does that make sense? Why am I sharing this? Because actually we live in a world where, because we have such easy access to information, everybody knows everything. Okay, I'm speaking broadly. We don't all know everything, but we have the ability to get access to the answers very quickly. But just because we know or have the ability to know everything doesn't mean we're going to do anything. And I think what we're finding, more and more people, as we've already established, go into apathy. That they don't even do the basics. Most of us don't walk 10,000 steps or eat 5 bits of fruits to vegetable or drink at least 2 liters of water a day or get enough sleep. So even though we know it, we're not doing it. And really, this session is about turning knowing into doing, because knowing doesn't enrich and enhance your life. Doing does. Does that make sense? Tom, let's bring you in. What have we got in the chat? If you want to scan through the chat, what's some of the key comments that we've got there?
Yeah, there's some absolutely fascinating things in the chat. Thank you so much for everybody who's contributing. We really, really do appreciate it. There's lots of people talking about how their stress is self-inflicted. How people feel that they know what to do, they know good information, but the actual act of knowing information is a really punishing feeling of what to do, but you don't know what to do. Things that you know I should be doing this, but you just physically can't. And there's so many examples of people saying knowledge is meaningless without action.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's really wonderful to see that everybody understands this.
Yeah, and that's really what we're here to do, is to turn that knowledge into action, because it's the action that will bring you the benefit, not the knowledge in and of itself. So I don't want to get hung up on the numbers. It's more, are we taking the actions that bring us the benefit that we need? And that's really what we're here to explore, is the psychology of change. And we try to really kind of deliver the kind of core ideas today in a way that makes it easier for us to turn awareness into action. So what is preventing us from taking action? What's preventing us from doing the things that we know bring us benefit, from staying hydrated and resting well and nourishing ourselves and moving our bodies and so on and so forth? And Lauren, I've just seen your message about the vicious cycle. Like, sometimes we can end up self-flagellating. Like, I'm not doing the things I know are going to bring me benefits, so I'm getting upset with myself, and that vicious circle that we can find ourselves stuck in, for sure. What else? What else is preventing us from taking action? James is saying lack of motivation. Absolutely. Time, often, we just literally do not have the time or the capacity. We're too busy just trying to get through the day to find the time to build resilience. Okay. And is willpower and awareness enough, or is there something else missing? Just knowing what to do and having willpower, the determination, just gritting the teeth and getting on with it, is that enough? What are your thoughts? Okay, some of you saying no. If you said no, what's the reason awareness and willpower alone isn't enough? What else do we need if we are going to start taking action towards long-term behavioral change? Go for it, Paul.
Yeah, sometimes you might need the confidence. So maybe if you've got yourself into a rut, with whatever, putting on weight, stress, eating badly, then making the changes, that probably is going to be harder. So
Absolutely.
Maybe a boost of confidence might help.
Absolutely. So confidence, definitely. The other thing to bear in mind is that having hope and belief can definitely contribute to us having better life outcomes. What do I mean by that? Just just being inspired and having hope and belief that things can get better. How does that possibly bring about better life outcomes? How is it that people that have hope and belief are literally living longer, have better health, have better relationships, do better in their career, have better financial outcomes? And this is not my thoughts or my assumptions. This was based on a Harvard study that was done a few years ago. And Juliet, the can-do attitude, yes, but it's a bit more than that. Why is it that people that have hope and belief that things can change and improve, that they have better results in their life, they achieve more? Anyone got any thoughts? What does hope and belief inspire? like to Paul's example, if you're sat on the sofa and you're overweight and you're unhealthy and your doctor said that you kind of need to get yourself into shape because it's affecting your health, what might that do? And some of you say things like, manifestation and mindset and positive motivation, kind of, but it's much more than that. What is it that hope and belief will give you if you're on the sofa and you have a desire to improve your health? Drive, but Ilyas, drive to do what? Because most of what you're putting in there is thoughts, feelings, desires. Absolutely, Juliet, you're going to take action, right? If you believe that you can take action to improve your health and you're inspired to do so, you're going to get off your bum and go out for a walk or go to the gym or go for a run or do something that will bring about those positive outcomes. If you have hope and belief you can do better in your career, you are more likely to take action to improve your career. You have hope and belief you can have better relationships. Again, that will inspire the action that leads to that outcome. So yes, awareness and willpower helps, but inspiration, hope and belief is also a significant contributing factor. And let's just explore how habit works. It often starts with a simple pattern. Something in your life happens, right? Good or bad. Now, this applies to positive habits and also negative habits. It could be the trigger is something causes me stress. I do something, I eat a chocolate. Reward in the moment, I might feel distracted. I might feel like, some sensory pleasure from eating that chocolate, but it might not serve me long term. Same trigger, I get stressed. I do something different. I go outside for some fresh air. I take some breaths. I walk for 5 minutes. Again, I come back, I'm reset. What I'm suggesting here, we all have triggers and we're going to do something. Some of those things are going to serve us and some won't. But when we come under stress, often we end up going back to habits that feel quick, familiar, comforting, and they're not necessarily bringing us about the long-term change that we're looking for. They may actually keep us stuck in that state, but just provide temporary moments of relief. And part of this is if we understand the psychology of habits, we can start with awareness, taking the action that does serve us when we get triggered. So, what does the research say? Oh, sorry, we got some feedback. If any of you are in an environment where there are people talking, if you could just put yourself on mute, that would be amazing. Thank you. So what does the research say? So I know, Tom, you've done some research to prepare for today's session. Do you want to share with us what you came up with when you were looking at knowledge and knowledge in and of itself as an influence on behavioral change?
Yes, thank you so much, Neil. So one of the big addressing factors when it comes to changing your behavior and changing your habits was really reviewed back in 2024. So Nature Reviews Psychology did a meta-analysis using all of these scientific papers from people that you might be familiar with if you've been in this field, people like Daniel Kahneman. And what they found was really, really interesting, that there is this drive for us to try and know our way out of situations. So a classic example is if something bad has happened to you, you might try and exposure therapy and learn more about it and see if you can conquer it. Mentally, we're attracted to this idea of knowledge because it brings some kind of security mentally. But what they found is whilst it brought an emotional kind of security, this meta-analysis showed that actually, if you want to change your behavior, people who just knew a lot about a subject were not significantly more likely to change their behavior. This can be an example for exercise, that you might know exactly the best way to do a squat, but it doesn't mean that you're going to squat more if you know. Which is kind of paradoxical as to our intuition. But what they found is that approaches that were more structured, that used knowledge and willpower and more behaviorally informed approaches were the ones that were actually going to change people's lives, not just knowing alone.
Thank you, Tom. And it's a really interesting point. I remember reading something a few years ago. It was a philosophical book, and it was something along the lines of a person that knows 3 things and takes action against them is significantly more powerful and dangerous than someone that knows 1,000 things and does nothing with them, if that makes sense. So it's not about amassing knowledge. It's about acquiring the information you need and then be willing to take action against it. And I think that's really, for me, the key thing that we want to focus on today is how can we turn information that is useful and valuable to us into empowerment in our lives. And what's the process that we go through? What helps change to really happen? The first thing to ask yourself is, can I do it? I could sit here with Tom's support and go through the top 10 things to deal with stress. I actually wrote a book with that title about 10 years ago. I wouldn't encourage you to buy that book now, because if you're stressed and you read a book with the top 10 things to deal with stress, you're going to be more stressed by the time you finish, because it's like, well, I've got to find the time for exercise and planning my meals and socializing and all these things. It's like, I'm stressed because I haven't got enough time. Now I've got to find all this time for self-care and all that kind of thing. So it's not about acquiring a lot more information. It's just asking yourself, what can I do? And can I do it? Looks like, 5 minutes a day to spend some time outdoors without your phone. It could be, time with your family. These simple steps over time can take you in a completely different direction. If you're traveling in this direction, you take a 1 millimeter shift in your direction. Over time, it takes you in a completely different direction. And that's one of the things that I'm going to ask you to start with. Can I do it? Do I know what I want to do? And do I feel able to do it? Do I have the time, the resources, the capacity, the money to do it? Because there are a lot of things that we can do that don't cost anything at all, but maybe your idea is something that might require, I don't know, a gym membership, or it might require a pair of trainers or something for you to be able to keep engaged with it. If it's a new skill you want to learn, it might be something that you need to do in a group setting or with some kind of tuition available to guide you. If you wanted to take up, I don't know, martial art or yoga or breath work or meditation, and maybe you need some guidance. So can you do it? Do you have access to the means and the resources to be able to take that step? The next question, can I make it work practically? Does it fit into my day, my routine, my life? Do I have the capacity, the space for this? Because one of the other things that tends to happen, we have great ideas, we make a commitment, and we find that we are literally overwhelming ourselves. I used to joke that if I did my perfect morning routine and I did all the things that I would like to do to start my day, I wouldn't finish till 7 p.m. Because if I wanted to make the time to meditate and exercise and have a cold plunge and, prepare my fresh food for the rest of the day and journal, and the list goes on, like it would literally take me about 10 hours to do my perfect morning routine. So can I make it work? Well, no, but that doesn't mean I throw the baby out with the bathwater. What can I make work? What are my non-negotiables? What are the things that are set in stone as part of my daily routine? And for me, if I don't start my day with some kind of movement and at least 10 minutes of meditative practice, it totally changes the course of my day. So I had to adapt my ideas in a way that I could actually make it work. And then the next point is, can I keep it going? What will help me to stick with it when things get busy or difficult? And some of you already mentioned things like accountability, support, having people that you can do these activities with that will hold you accountable, joining peer groups. Some of you come to our monthly sessions because there's that sense of community support. There's 200 of us here to have this conversation together. And if you've made some decisions and need support to stick to it, having connections with like-minded people can be extremely valuable. That, my friends, is what leads to action and change. So talk to me about this from your perspective. What are the barriers to this, and what can we do to ensure that rather than making hundreds of decisions, that we're able to make simple, clear decisions on things that you can do, that you can make work, and you can keep going? So talk to me about your thoughts and reflections on what we've shared here as the model, the formula for change. What are your thoughts on this? Any reflections? Go for it, Lewis.
I think it seems to take quite a high level of emotional intelligence from an individual to be able to sort of achieve this, or at least develop that emotional intelligence to be able to question yourself and go, can I do it, and what is needed to keep it going, because having conversations around it, I think a lot of people struggle to have that conversation with themselves, and understand, you know, a lot of people want to try stuff and put their hands in things, but they don't actually take into account to sit back and think what is it going to take to maintain that, and then they give up a bit too early, you know, and then they almost crash out because they're stressed that they can't achieve it. So I think this is really good to try and break it down and develop that emotional intelligence of people, to bring it better.
And I'm saying great because it's a really powerful point, and thank you, Lewis. You're absolutely right. Often we bite off more than we can chew. You know, you've got these grand ideas of what you want to be able to achieve, and then you realize that obviously life is busy and it might not be as easy or as straightforward as you first thought it was. Right now, what I'm asking you all to consider is how you can essentially establish the muscle memory for change, how you can develop the level of awareness of what it takes to bring about positive, meaningful change. So rather than starting with, I am going to learn to speak, you know, Mandarin fluently, or I'm going to learn surfing, or I'm going to become, you know, a 4th Dan black belt in jiu-jitsu or karate. I probably completely screwed that up because I don't know anything about martial arts. But the point is, rather than making big, grand, lofty decisions, what about starting with something small? What about starting with something that takes 5 minutes a day? For example, I'm going to walk for 5 minutes a day in my local park, or I'm going to spend 5 minutes a day just sat in a comfy chair, just being present to my breath. And it's not just about the benefits of sitting there being present to your breath. It's about forming a habit. It's making a commitment and sticking to that commitment. And I hear you, Lewis, that often we lack the emotional attention because we haven't done this before. But what if you could start really simple, and, you know, 2-3 months down the line, where would your life be as a result of making that micro decision? But also, how has that changed your mindset? Because the next time that you have to approach making maybe a slightly bigger decision, you've already got a positive kind of story and outcome as a result of a previously made decision. And that's really what I'm going to encourage you all to consider, is that those little steps is also training your brain for when you make a slightly bigger step in the future. So Tom, what's the comments in the chat around this? What's everyone's thoughts around, you know, the process of change?
I mean, again, thank you so much. Everybody's having such a busy conversation in the chat at the moment. Some really, really interesting stuff. Lots of good books being shared, things like Atomic Habits and the Chimp Paradox. But what I find really interesting is people have started talking about things like New Year's resolutions. And this is effectively us talking about when you want to change something in your life, when you come to that moment where you've got all of that motivation, what do you want to change? What do you say? Okay, this year I'm going to do something differently. So what sticks with people's New Year's resolutions and what doesn't is absolutely fascinating. There's lots of people talking about tricking themselves and finding triggers that are already in their routines, and as well, people very kindly talking about experience of things like ADHD and how difficult it can be for people who are neurodiverse to take very standardized advice.
Absolutely. It's a good point, and that's where, you know, from our perspective, we're not coming in with standardized advice. We're not telling you what you should and shouldn't do. We're here to inspire you to come up with your own commitments and find what is important to you. We're all unique and individual, and this is really where it's important for you to think about what is it that you could commit to that is going to serve you, that's going to bring you benefit. Because right now you all have coping strategies. And if I ask the question, I'm so stressed, I need a blank, fill in the blank, what would your blank be? Actual question, not a rhetorical one. So if you had to complete the statement, I'm so stressed, I need a blank. So Tracy Ann's going for a nap, wonderful. And be honest, there's no judgment here. Okay, Julia, what kind of drink is that? Water, apple juice? It's blowing up now, so I can't keep up with the comments in the chat. But I'll get Tom to scan through them in a second. But what you're going to get in the chat is essentially, you know, suggestions that are going to fall into one of the two buckets that we see on the screen, right? Some are helpful and will serve you, and some might not be quite so helpful. And you know, I'll leave you to determine whether your you know, anesthetic for stress of choice is helpful or unhelpful. But there are things that we can do that will be supportive, like, you know, taking some time to observe your breath, go for a walk, talk to someone, drink some water, do some movement, have some time to journal, get your thoughts out. But it could be like procrastinating, doom scrolling on Instagram, self-medicating with chocolate, alcohol, nicotine, refined sugar products, whatever. You know, just snapping at others, skipping rest, playing a video game. There might be things that we will do that might not necessarily serve or support us. We're just distracting ourselves. The first step is being aware of what your current patterns of behavior are. Are you choosing to manage or to deal with stress and challenges with pressure with things that are putting it off or avoiding it, or just giving you a temporary relief, but when you come back to it, the issue is still there? Or are we doing things that are genuinely increasing and improving our resilience? And that's really what this conversation is about. How can we take steps to improve our resilience, to better equip us to cope with the demands and challenges of daily life? And just in case you have been living in a cave or in the woods for the last couple of months, the world's wild right now. We're quite literally living in an episode of Black Mirror. Every day we wake up and I have no idea what's happened overnight and who said what and who's done what and what the orange fella's done, and you know, it just goes on, and it's wild. It's literally, being alive in 2026 seems to be more fantastic than anything you can find on Netflix. And with that in mind, we do need to have good strategies just to be able to navigate daily life, because I don't know what's going to happen next, but I can tell you what the data is showing over the last 4 years, 5 years, that people have been struggling more and more with their mental health, that we are having increased concerns with issues like suicidality. So it's up to us. We can't be waiting for someone to fix this. It's up to us to take action to ensure we are looking after ourselves. And this is really where you have a choice. I know sometimes it doesn't feel like it, but we do have the choice of being able to take a course of action that serves us and builds our resilience. The tangerine toddler. I'm going to borrow that as well. I've got a few quotes here that I've written down. Tangerine toddler. Thank you so much, Elise. I will have that. Toddler tantrums for sure. And there is a lot of that going on in the world. And ultimately, we can either choose to be a part of the solution or a part of the problem. The whole reason that we chose the Be the Change campaign is to encourage you all to stop waiting for someone else to fix it. It's not your MP, it's not, you know, the doctor or HR's responsibility. We've got a responsibility to ourselves. And how can we choose the course of action that's going to best serve us to navigate the wild time that we find ourselves living in? So just want to hand over to Tom to share an example that he's got from his own life of how he identified where to start. Because sometimes it can feel overwhelming. You don't know where to start. What changes that he made, and help us hopefully to identify what changes we can make in our daily lives, and also what can keep us on track. So Tom, I'd love to hear your story.
Thank you so much, Neil. Yes. I'm going to briefly talk because there's so many wonderful stories that I know we want to hear from everybody in the chat today. But one of the big things, as I was mentioning earlier about knowledge, is that people in this field can be big hypocrites. I've worked in behavioral research in, you know, busy London consultancies trying to understand the human mind, but I wasn't trying to apply this research to me. I had experience of meditation and kind of internal cultivation practices that I just wasn't bringing into my everyday life. It felt something very separate. And I knew it was the only thing that could kind of cure the overworked, busy mindset that I was stuck in whenever I was in work. So I knew that I had the cure, knowledge. I knew where it needed to be applied, but I didn't know how to kind of bring it into the rest of my life. How do I bring this part of me that is relaxed and chilled out into a busy work environment? And it had to start with a community. It had to start with me approaching colleagues and saying, I need half an hour in my calendar that is just to myself. I need these moments that are for me, in the same way that everybody needs moments for just themselves. We started to block out half an hour where none of us would be in meetings or rushing or doing anything that was time sensitive. It was just time for us to reflect. And by building that uniformity across my team, we started to realize none of us felt guilty about finding that moment for ourselves. So it was so much easier to not feel that, oh, I'm worrying about whether I'm getting this thing to my colleague in time, because we were all doing it. And by doing that, by having a group around you that you can see, okay, we're all finding some mental health space, we're all finding some half an hour in our schedule to de-stress, you start to create this community that all values the same thing. And then when people push back, there's a bit more of a unionized, united front against it. And that was the way that I was able to bring meditation into my daily life. But I'm so curious to hear what everybody in the chat has as to how they try and integrate all of these pieces of advice into their working environments.
Thank you, Tom. And what else you're just sharing? Yeah, go for it, Natalie.
I was just going to share that I actually try and schedule things like this into my calendar. So like you said, Tom, that you made that space altogether, people can see that, you know, I'm taking lunch, I'm taking a micro break, I'm going to mindfulness. And although sometimes things try to go in, it gives me that little bit of permission, I suppose, to feel I can push back because I've set that intention. So I do encourage others to do that as well. And quite often people say that helps.
Yeah, one of the big things that I've noticed, like permission is so important, to give ourselves permission that we're not being, I noticed in the chat, lots of people have talked about feeling like you need to be selfish, but I wouldn't ever say that looking after yourself is selfish. I think we worry so much about pleasing everybody that we need to understand that taking that moment for ourselves is like putting on the oxygen mask first. It means that we're able to help everybody else around us.
Absolutely. It's not selfish, it's actually selfless, because when you take care of yourself, you're better equipped to support those around you. Go for it, Paul.
Yeah, so in my experience, quite a few years ago, suffered quite a lot of like mental health conditions. I still take medication for it today. It's not going to go away anytime soon, but you kind of learn how to manage it. And with a lot of help, I got through it. But one thing I still do is attend a men's mental health peer support group on a Wednesday night. Yeah, it's called Space Northeast. I mean, Sunderland's got one of the highest suicide rates for men in the country. And it's not everybody going there saying, "Oh, I need help," but a lot of the men who go there are okay at the moment, but they just go there to check in. And if somebody else needs help, you talk about it. And a lot of people with the similar issues, work, stress, family, general life. So I find it works just to have a check in.
Absolutely. And having that peer support, the community support in place is really integral to long-term success. Having people that you can turn to and hold you accountable. And if you want to consider what action you can take that's going to bring about long-term benefit, long-term change for you, just follow that process. Small actions that you can take when things start to feel overwhelming. What is it that you can do? So ask yourself, can I do it? Can I make it work? Can I stick to it? Can I keep it going? And, if you've got a list of go-tos that you can turn to when things get overwhelming, it's going to make it easier rather than waiting until that you're in that moment of stress and overwhelm before you start to consider what actions you can take. So what are the key things to remember? Start small. I appreciate Lewis' suggestion, learning surfing or whatever, learning a new language. We can have really great intentions, but if we haven't got the time or the capacity and we fall, that kind of commitment falls to the wayside, what you're also telling your subconscious is when things get difficult, I'm going to give up. So why not choose something that you can stick to? One small step is enough to get started, just as we start to retrain our brains to make long-term commitments, to unlearn things that don't serve us, to learn things that do. Keep it simple, make it easy to do. If you think you want to do sort of half an hour of walking every day, but you're busy and there are days that won't happen, then make the commitment 10 minutes. Little and often, daily commitments work much better than something you say you're going to do once a week. It's much more likely to fall by the wayside if the commitment is a weekly or a fortnightly or a monthly than if it's daily. So I would much prefer you make a decision that you can commit to and stick to every single day. One of my decisions at the moment, I am learning to play a new hand drum. So I've been playing the bongos for many years. I'm now learning to play the djembe. 5 minutes of playing every day is far better than 1 hour once a week, because it just keeps the habit alive. Notice what helps, create those positive feedback loops. So being able to recognize, I feel good after I've done this, and maybe even making a note of that. So you're tracking the benefit that you're gaining from that commitment, and repeat what works. If it doesn't work, then try something different. But if it does, then keep coming back to it. Maintain that commitment and ensure that you've got people around you that can hold you accountable. And that's why we've chosen to be the change for our campaign this year, because awareness is only useful when it leads to change for us and for each other. And this is really a call to action, is how can you be the change that we want to see in the world? Because when you take action, you will inspire others to do the same. When people see you're getting positive benefit, you could be the positive story that other people really need in their lives. Because right now we have access to a lot of negative information. And how can we all start to disseminate stories that empower and inspire those around us? Because we all need a bit more inspiration in our lives. So that's why Judy, if she's here, our wonderful campaign manager for Stress Awareness Month, has been working very hard for the last 4 months to prepare for Stress Awareness Month. Are you here, Judy?
Yes, I am. Hi, everyone.
Fantastic. Do you want to talk us through the wonderful resources you've got for Stress Awareness Month?
Yeah, so on the website, I don't know if you guys have seen. If not, we'll send a link in the chat. And there's a whole range of resources, from the 30-day challenge to some information packs to also some daily tips that you can use in your day-to-day life. and more coming each day. We've also partnered with a few people for Stress Awareness Month. So we've got we've partnered with Myota, who are doing a study around gut health and stress. So if any of you are London based, we'll send you the inquiries form where you'll do a study that's 12 weeks long, and you'll be given a probiotic, and you get £150 upon completion if you're interested. So I can send you the link for that. And they're also running a webinar on Wednesday next week talking about gut health and stress if you're interested. And then we're also partnering with LucidWorks, who basically have products to help reduce stress. And if you use the code NOSTRESS15, which we'll also put in the chat, you basically get 15% off orders over £25. And the other partner we've got is Sensate. So basically they're a device that are backed by clinical study to help reduce stress, improve sleep, boost your overall well-being. And it actually shows that using that Sensate can help you fall asleep a lot quicker. And we'll also share the discount code for that. If you guys are subscribed to our newsletter, all that information will be on there as well. And if you have any questions, feel free to email me for any more information and resources as well.
And Judy, if I remember correctly, there's a free breathwork session on Monday evening as well for anyone that wants to join. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. At 7 p.m. on Monday. I missed that with everything going on.
Okay, so there's lots and lots of free activities for the month. There's opportunities to get involved with a variety of different things. There's obviously the study for those that are interested in getting involved with that as well. And as I said, like, there's a bunch of free resources. So get involved, share the resources, use them yourself, let people in your organizations and your family know should they feel they would benefit. If you have found value from today's discussion, leave us a little review on Google. It really helps other people to find us as well. Judy will send up a follow-up email with all the information that we've shared today, all the links and the recording as well, if you want to share that with others. If you do need access to any additional support, if there's any aspects of today's call that have brought things up for you, there are some resources there on the screen. We will also share that on the email that we will share with you. So just before we close, just an opportunity to hear from you. So what are your thoughts and reflections from today? What's stood out for you about our discussion around change? What feels maybe even slightly more possible for you today when it comes to changing habits? What's one small commitment you can make as a result of today's discussion? So just before you leave, I'd love to hear from you in terms of any thoughts, reflections, what stood out, or what are you going to do as a result of today's discussion? What are you going to do to turn the awareness we've shared today into action and power for yourselves? So what commitments have we got dropping in, Tom?
We've got a lot of people realizing just how big changes can be, and lots of people are just saying they want to start small
Okay.
5-minute meditations, taking micro breaks throughout the day, being less lonely, encouraging others, small steps, baby steps, smaller goals. People are realizing that you don't need to change the world in a moment. It can take time.
Absolutely. What's the phrase? Rome wasn't built in a day, right? So with whatever your commitments and your intentions are, starting small and building up is far more sustainable than choosing the big, lofty, audacious goal that falls to pieces after the first week because you just don't have the time and capacity for it. You've done the hard thing. You found an hour of your valuable time to be here with us in this discussion. We're really grateful to have you here. And together we can make a difference. You know, enough of us believe that we can bring about positive change. We start to create ripples, and those ripples will hopefully reach the people that need to be exposed to them. So appreciate you all for your energy, your contribution in today's discussion. Wishing you the best of luck putting in place your actions and commitments. and we look forward to seeing you all at our next session. Have a wonderful rest of the day. It's been really lovely having you all here. Thank you.
Thank you.